You're listening to Murder Not Murdering with Erin,
and Autumn,
a true crime podcast about murder and murdering.
but we are not murderers.
Welcome back to Murder Not Murdering
With Autumn
and
Erin. I wonder if that'll pick up.
Yeah, I think it will, but we're not an ASMR podcast, so sorry.
I was just telling Erin that we could be, though.
It's partly because right before we got started, Autumn went or she drank her water, and I was like, what are you in, like a Pepsi commercial from 1988?
Yes, I am. I also did it to be annoying.
Yeah, that's I'm just glad you didn't do it while we were on air, and I had to edit that out later.
It's part of who I am, okay?
Yeah.
I have to hydrate. We've
so
talked
fun.
about this.
Yes, you have to stay hydrated. Also, drink your water, folks.
Yes, water is the best.
Water is the best. I do want to do a wine night again soon because I cannot remember the name of this winery that I went on this wine walk with a friend of mine, and I tried this rosé, and then they had like this blend. It's an LGBT owned winery in Seattle, and it was so good that I went like online the next week and I ordered 6 bottles of the rosé and 2 bottles of the blend, and it's so good.
I love rosé
so much.
I would drink rosé with you.
Rosé all day.
That's one of the only wines I like.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It does. I'm a don't want to taste the alcohol kind of girl.
Yeah, I like all the alcohols. Anywho, welcome back because we were both on vacation and I went to Palm Springs. So the case I am covering tonight is an actual murder that happened in Palm Springs. No, I did not commit it. It was just one that I found out about while I was there.
That she's saying she's innocent, but we will be the judge of that here at Murder Not Murdering.
We literally talk about not murdering.
That's true. Okay, you got me there.
It's a good cover.
Yes, a great cover.
Autumn went to Arizona, right?
Yes.
Yeah. So we were both in the desert at times, but none of this was planned that we exactly had the same like dates we were gone.
Right. Which is super, super fun. But also I got insanely burned and I was using 70 SPF. Okay.
It's one of the worst sunburns I've seen, to be honest.
Was so bad. I missed that area. And it just,
it's another color of red than I've ever seen on a human body.
It's pretty bad, but now it's tanning. So I have the most ridiculous looking tan line ever. It is awful. It is so weird looking.
Also, I was planning on getting tattoos with my friend Emma for her birthday when we were in Palm Springs, but then it was so fucking hot, like 106. I'm Pacific Northwest born and raised, and I am not used to that kind of weather. And I was like, I don't want to get a tattoo and then sweat all over it. And then I won't be able to go in the pool because I have a brand new fresh tattoo. And so we were like, fuck it. We'll just do it when we get back. So I went and saw my brother-in-law, Clayton Rhodes, at Church Tattoo in White Center. And,
you're welcome, Clayton.
Shout out. No, he's very talented and he does the American traditional style, which I have a lot of tattoos that in that way. He's a really clean work, really pretty saturated colors. Anyway, if you saw on our Instagram, I got a tattoo, which is an ode to being a detective on Murder Not Murdering. So it's like a chef's knife with a lady like looking like I'm watching you. And
Stabby Jim is very, very, very proud of her.
Yeah, Stabby Jim approves. So that's good. But I love it. I really, really do. So that was a thing. We did post about it on Insta. So you'll see it. Maybe we'll put another post out.
Yeah, we'll put another one out after the episode comes out. But it's very cute. It's very cute.
It's very cute. Yeah, it's kind of in the ugly stage right now where it's like scabbing over, but I
I
love
can
it.
tell you, you made the right decision because I got a tattoo in Maui. And after I got that tattoo, I couldn't go in the pool. I couldn't go in the ocean anymore or the beach. And
Yeah.
I sweated on the plane.
God, I can't even imagine what going in salt water would feel like with a fresh tattoo.
Oh, yeah, I wouldn't. It was because it's an open
Ow.
wound. You could get so infected if you get into the salt water.
Totally.
There's so much like
Yeah. Yeah.
bacteria. So
Mhm.
just don't do it. I
Don't
didn't.
do it.
I didn't go in, but
But if you do like the American traditional style and you are in the Seattle area, do go visit my brother-in-law Clayton at Church Tattoo because he's super awesome. And his Instagram is full of his work and it's amazing. We're gonna jump in, I think. I think this is a good time to get in on this. Murder.
I'm ready to get in on it because
Get in on
Erin,
it.
you didn't commit it. Wink, wink.
Okay.
So I need to know about it.
So this is a roller fucking coaster.
For a second, I thought you were gonna say roller skating murder, and I was gonna be like,
No.
"Oh my god, that's gonna be great!"
If only.
Mhm.
Anyway, no, it's not. It does not. Nothing takes place in a roller rink,
Dang.
but it does take place in the 70s. So
Same,
that's okay.
same.
Here we go. The Friendly Murders.
I don't. That sounds like really contradictory.
Yeah. Well, you'll find out. I have some bad news for you. Your father, Ed Friendly, had been scheduled for a prostate surgery that day. His daughter Suzanne called him at home the previous night at 5 p.m. Houston time to wish him good luck. And no one answered the phone, which was odd for them. Oh my God, my father's had a heart attack, she said. Then, oh, please don't make me go down there. My stepmother is, not a nice person. I just can't be around her. She's hysterical. It's your stepmother, Suzanne's employer said. My stepmother had a heart attack, she responded. Well, he said, and the maid. What are you telling me? She asked. They were all murdered. And that's all you get for now. That was just a little clue before we start at the beginning.
I was like, what is exactly? Is this a reenactment?
I mean, no, it's an actual quote from the woman, Suzanne, talking about her dad's death. That was how the news was broke to her. She's a was a news anchor, and her boss was like, I need to pull you aside and tell you this.
Oh, that makes more sense now.
And the last name is Friendly. Picking
Love
up.
it.
Yeah.
Love it.
That's why it's the Friendly Murders. It wasn't a friendly murder. It's just the name. Anyway, we're going to start at the beginning though. Sophia Brownell was thrust into society by her socialite mother. Her family was wealthy and very prominent in San Francisco, California. Sophia was debuted in 1924. Described as a dainty, pretty, copper-haired girl, Sophia wanted to be an actress and moved to New York City in her early 20s. Her theatrical career was unsuccessful, but she did find a match in Curtis Hutton. Curtis came from wealth. His cousin was the infamous Barbara Hutton, who was the heiress to the Woolworth fortune. Barbara Hutton would eventually waste away that fortune, marry 7 times, including Cary Grant, and struggle with both addiction and the strain of her fame. She was constantly followed by reporters and paparazzi. It is said that when she died, she just had $3,500 left. Barbara was famously generous, showering even acquaintances with gifts. Sadly, there were just a few people that she was close to. But one of them was her older cousin, Curtis. He was kind to her and she cared for him. Curtis was a sportsman, good at polo, and worked briefly as a stuntman in Hollywood. Later, he moved to the East Coast where he met Sophia Brownell. They had 2 children, Sophia and Edward. And I know it's confusing because that's 2 Sophias. And there's going to be 2 Edwards in this story. So from here on out, I'll be referring to the daughter, Sophia Hutton, as Sophia Hutton and Edward Hutton as Edward Hutton. And then I will just say Sophia when I'm referring to her mother.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. After Curtis and Sophia were married, Barbara Hutton gave her cousin a $1 million trust. The trust income went to Curtis throughout his lifetime. When he died, it would be liquidated and paid out to his children. But in 1941, World War II broke out, and Curtis, then 41 years old, wanted to serve his country. Sophia would agree to let her husband enlist only if her husband signed an irreversible agreement that upon his death, the Barbara Hutton trust income would go to her so she could support herself and their children. If she died before him, the original inheritance would stand and the children would inherit. Curtis agreed, not knowing if he would ever make it back from the war. And the clause was signed on January 9th, 1942. Good news, Curtis made it back from the war safely.
Oh, good.
However, the agreement could never be legally changed because it was irreversible. This wouldn't have been a problem, except in 1951, Curtis and Sophia divorced. According to relatives, Sophia was a hands-off and all-around cold mother to her children and relied on nannies to take care of them. After the divorce, the two kids moved in with their mother and moved to San Francisco. They lived in a townhouse that was purchased by Curtis. The townhouse was in the children's names, but Sophia had the right to dwell there for the rest of her life. Also helping out the family was Sophia's mother, who had a reported $12 million inheritance.
When are all these people getting these inheritance around her? That's so weird.
Well, they're old money, folks. So in 1953, Sophia married Ed Friendly, and I will be calling him Ed because there's Edward Hutton, her son. She married a guy with the same name as her son. Anyway, he was also divorced and he had two children from his previous marriage, Suzanne and Tony. Sophia and Curtis's son, Edward Hutton, attended prep school, followed by Columbia University. He was known to have quite a taste for luxury. He married his Columbia classmate, Caroline Dubois, in 1963, but he could not hold down a job. He was hired and fired from 12 different brokerage firms between 1964 and 1977. In the early 70s, Edward and his family moved to London, where he continued to struggle financially. At the end of 1976, his marriage ended. 1977 was a hard year for the Huttons, the Friendlies, and the Brownells. Sophia's brother, William Brownell, later told the San Francisco Chronicle, the Friendlies ran out of money. They were more or less living off of my mother while she was alive. And Ed Friendly wasn't a success either, with numerous failed business attempts. Remember that townhouse I mentioned that didn't belong to Sophia, but it was in her children's name?
Yes.
In the early 70s, Sophia arranged for the children to sign over their rights to the property so she could sell it. Then she used the proceeds to put a down payment on her first house in Palm Springs. She's fucking ruthless, this one. Her children, Edward and Sophia, complained and pressed for some share of the sale of the house, their house, but the mother refused. Ed Friendly warned his stepchildren if they continued to protest, they would both be disinherited.
Oh my God. Like he has the authority to do that?
Instead of backing off, the younger Sophia sued her mother. And in 1977, their mother did just what Ed Friendly said and amended her will to disinherit both of her children. William Brownell, Sophia's brother, and in the same news story I mentioned before, said, my sister's relationship with her children was never satisfactory. She wasn't the motherly type at all, and she was extremely selfish. Edward Hutton, the son, confirmed in an article by Du Jour that there was a lot of animosity. Hutton said, my relationship with my mother at the time of her death was somewhat strained because she and my stepfather swindled my sister and I out of the proceeds of the sale from our San Francisco home. We subsequently found out that she had used that money to pay off gambling debts of our stepfather.
That's
shitty.
Really fucked up.
I know. Edward Hutton also confirmed to de jure that he had met a man named Andreas Christensen in London in the 1970s. Caroline Hutton, Edward's now ex-wife, said Andreas had met Ed in one of those pubs in London. They became thick as thieves. Andreas always had stories of his adventures, either in one business or another, or his time working as a mercenary. He would also have a number of passports. He was dating a lovely woman named Katja Nielsen, and as I would later learn, he took her for quite a bit of money. Katja worked while either Ed or, Katja worked while neither Ed nor Andreas had a steady job. Every morning, the two of them would get up and walk her dogs for her while she was at work. In 1978, Edward Hutton, heavily in debt, returned to the United States, leaving his children, Virginia and Teddy, in London with his ex-wife. Custody disputes raged. He was broke and owed money to everyone, Caroline said. In September 1978, Andreas Christensen arrived in Houston. 2 weeks later, the two men flew to Los Angeles, rented a Ford sedan, and drove to Santa Barbara. Edward Hutton had gotten a call from his sister that their father, Curtis Hutton, was dying. Sophia Hutton, the daughter, said that my brother Edward said, I called my brother Edward to let him know that our father was gravely ill and that I was helping take care of him. And I thought he should come visit. A week or so later, he arrives in Santa Barbara with this strange man he had never mentioned before. His name was Andreas Christensen, and he was introduced to us as a good friend of Edward's from his time in London. And they supposedly worked together, but at what was somewhat of a mystery. Andreas made the whole family uncomfortable. He was, quote, scary and cold as ice. Sophia Hutton said, the first day of their visit, Edward, with Christensen standing right there, asked my ill father if he could have his gun collection. Without saying it, he meant after my father dies. It was terrible. This did not please my father. And it was also insensitive and horrible. We had an uncomfortable fish dinner at the Biltmore, one of the more fashionable restaurants in Santa Barbara. And during dinner, I asked Christensen why he had dyed his hair to look like blonde, from blonde to darker hair color. It was a steel color and looked all shiny. He gave me some excuse that he was going to a Halloween party or some such nonsense. In an email exchange with the writer of the du jour article, Edward Hutton said, Andreas Christensen never communicated nor saw my father, nor entered his home, nor did he and I ever discuss my father's gun collection.
Interesting. How long after was the email exchange?
Recent.
Okay.
So you're going to see some discrepancies in that from what the sister says to Edward Hutton, and also Andreas Christensen. There's going to be a lot of discrepancies there. Okay. Now, the night of the murders. It was October 12th, 1978 in Palm Springs, California. Sophia Friendly, age 71, donned a floor-length dress and gold shoes. Back in the day, they would dress for dinner, not like sweatpants and t-shirts I don on most nights.
I was about to say, ooh, that doesn't sound very good for me.
Sophia's husband, Ed Friendly, 74, put on a nice jacket. The couple's maid set the dining room table with crystal and a six-piece silver service that included slender fish knives. Around 7 p.m., the killer walked in the front door of the 3-bedroom Mediterranean-style villa at 893 Camino del Sur. Sophia Friendly went to the door, then turned to flee down the hallway. She was shot in the back of the head and died instantly. Frances Williams, the Friendly 67-year-old cook and housekeeper, had just slipped a fish dinner into the warming oven. When the killer arrived in the kitchen, she dropped to her knees. The killer fired a bullet into her head, point blank, killing her immediately. Lastly, Edward Friendly, who wore a hearing aid, and it was thought to be off so he didn't hear the shots as he was watching TV and sipping a drink in the den, turned his chair, but didn't get up as he was shot twice, once in the chest, then in the head. Photos and papers were tossed all around, and Ed's pant pockets were turned inside out. There was one other peculiar thing. A man's fedora was tossed over the face of Sophia Friendly. Nothing was taken, including $400 of cash that was in plain view in a wallet. The only thing left behind were the shell casings on the floor of the hallway, the kitchen, and the den. Those casings would prove crucial, but not for more than 30 years. The casings were the only clue left behind.
Wow.
No, not one neighbor observed anything out of the ordinary, and no one heard the gunshots.
How close were their neighbors? Do you know? Were they
right next door? Right next door. It's like in a housing development.
So it wasn't like remote at all.
No. And this makes you think that it could possibly be a professional hit. So at 7:30 a.m. that Friday morning, the regular pool maintenance worker was beginning to clean the Friendly's pool when he noticed through the window there appeared to be a dead body laying in a pool of blood in the kitchen. It was a horrific murder scene, says retired Palm Springs detective Tom Barton. Other than the shell casings ejected from the weapon, there was little, if any, evidence. Barton remembers that the members of the local police department performed a 3-block grid search looking for the weapon, only to come up with nothing. Police ruled out robbery as the motive. At first, detectives focused on the background of Ed Friendly, but like I mentioned before, he had failed business dealings and didn't have any money to take. The detectives began looking into Sophia Friendly. They found multi-generational trusts, and that included the $1 million trust that Curtis Hutton had been left by his cousin Barbara Hutton. Remember, it stated that if Curtis died before her, Sophia would receive the money, not the children. And they were disinherited, so they would never see it at all. Curtis's son and daughter would only inherit if their mother died before their father.
That makes sense.
Curtis Hutton was terminally ill at the time, so the matter of who died first was extremely important to the inheritance. Don't forget, about 3 weeks prior to the murder of the Friendlies and their maid, Curtis's son, Edward, and Edward's friend, Andreas Christensen, visited, where they talked about guns with his father. Detective Barton flew to Houston and was met by a young homicide detective of that city, Johnny Donovan, which is like the coolest cop name.
Yes, I would agree. That is very cool.
It's Detective Johnny Donovan. And
yes.
Or
like Matlock.
Yes. They headed for a restaurant that Edward Hutton claimed to own a part of, which actually belonged to a man named Henry Kelsey. Edward only functioned as a sommelier for his friend and had no stake in the business. Such a liar.
Oh my gosh, I should do that. I should be like, oh yeah, I own part of Erin's business.
Yeah, that sounds great. Thanks.
I know, because I'm like very versed on roller skating.
Sure. Henry Kelsey alleged that Edward sold bottles of wine at inflated prices to customers and then pocketed the money. Edward said, Mr. Kelsey and I had a difference of opinion on running a restaurant. Yeah, stealing is not good. Sorry, Edward.
Right. The difference of opinion is really probably the majority of America.
Yeah. In a strange turn of events, Henry Kelsey also told detectives that a month earlier, Edward had introduced him to Andreas Christensen in the restaurant. He was shocked when the Danish man who he just met asked him to purchase a gun for him. Henry told the police, needless to say, I refused. He also suggested that the police interview the maitre d', David St. John, and the head waiter, Antonio Garrido. David St. John told police that Edward and Andreas belonged to a prestigious gun club in London and that Andreas wanted to purchase a .45 caliber handgun. But because he was a foreigner, he could not legally purchase the weapon. Edward Hutton said that he couldn't purchase the weapon because you need a valid Texas driver's license to purchase it, and he had not been issued one yet since he moved to Texas. The head waiter, Antonio, said that they pressured him to buy a gun for them. So he went with Andreas to a pawn shop and confirmed that he bought one, but he was unsure of the details. Detectives put out a wanted for questioning alarm for Andreas Christensen, but he had quietly left the country. The detectives contacted Interpol and put him on their wanted list. Edward Hutton was interviewed twice by detectives in Houston. He had proof that on September 25th, he flew back to Texas from California and had not left since then. Detective Barton said, at first, he also lied about taking Christensen to Santa Barbara to meet his father, but later admitted that he did it. The detective working with me quickly established that Hutton did indeed have a Texas driver's license, so he could have purchased the gun. Edward agreed to a third interview with police. When he was supposed to voluntarily take a polygraph test, he never showed. Detective Barton headed back to California, and a breakthrough came when a female forensics expert identified the murder weapon as a Spanish-made Star PD 45 caliber pistol. There was only one manufacturer at that time that manufactured the right to left or left to right twist. All of the others were the other way. So that narrowed down what brand and model the gun was. Basically, when a bullet is fired from a handgun, it spins either right or left. The spin creates marks on the recovered bullet that establishes what spin was being used. With the bullets and the shell casings in hand, the expert was also able to establish that the bullets were a 45 caliber hollow point CCI spear ammunition. And that's important to remember. On October 26, 1978, Curtis Hutton died in his Santa Barbara home at the age of 77. Within months, Edward Hutton and Sophia Hutton, now Merrill, split the Barbara Hutton Trust, which had grown to $1.3 million.
Oh my
They also inherited the trust money from their mother's side of the family that could not be altered by any will addendums. It was the money from a trust his mother inherited from her descendant, the Pacific Northwest lumber mogul, Frederick Talbot. A recent trust statement of Edward Hutton's says that he still receives approximately $96,000 a year from his mother's trust.
Oh my God.
Now, in this time.
That's crazy.
I know. Detective Barton also received an important phone call from David St. John, who admitted he had not been completely open when they interviewed him in Houston. St. John now said that he was absolutely sure that the weapon Antonio purchased for Andreas was a 45 caliber handgun. And the place he bought it was at the Bel Air gun shop just outside of Houston. The Houston authorities spoke with the gun shop owner and confirmed Antonio's purchase. There was a receipt of the sale. To complete the case in Palm Springs, the receipt would have to be obtained and the shop owner interviewed. Unfortunately, Barton's superior officer said that he had spent too much of the county's money already and refused to let him return to Houston. He was told to ask one of his superior officer's FBI golfing buddies to pick up the receipt. It took the FBI 2 months to get the document. In a crazy turn of events, in February 1979, Edward Hutton was staying with friends Enid and Jack McSherry when Enid received a call from the Houston police asking to speak to Edward. The police had news. David St. John had been found dead in the bathtub of Edward Hutton's Houston apartment. When told of the news over the phone, Edward did not seem to be concerned, said Enid. Later, Edward Hutton would say that when David St. John died, he was in London with his children and said that St. John was staying in his Houston apartment. So it couldn't have been robbed. There's just so many inconsistencies with everything he says. Detective Barton said Houston Detective Johnny Donovan called me all heartbroken and apologetic. St. John had been found dead in Hutton's apartment over the weekend, and uniforms treated it like it was just another overdose. They hadn't checked about him being a potential witness in a murder investigation. It was hard to believe that this strong, healthy kid would die from a combination of booze and cocaine in Hutton's apartment. So basically, he was probably murdered, but they didn't investigate it as a murder. They just called it an overdose because they never knew about what had actually happened prior. Weirdly, Antonio, the head waiter, who told police that he purchased a .45 caliber pistol for Andreas Christensen, was gunned down by a hitchhiker he picked up on a drive to Arkansas. The murderer was caught and given a 50-year sentence.
Jesus.
Then, I know. Then the case went cold until June 19th, 1981. Detective Fred Donnell received a phone call that changed everything. It was from Interpol. Danish police just arrested an Alfred Borg in a bank robbery. But that wasn't the man's real name. It was none other than Andreas Christensen.
What?
Yes. Denmark is very eco-conscious, and it's a violation to leave a car motor on and idle for more than 5 minutes. So a passerby called police when they saw a car that was sitting outside of this bank, and that's how he was caught during the robbery. He literally walked out of the bank and right into police custody.
Oh my God.
For leaving a car idle. He and a woman native of Zimbabwe were charged with the robbery. Detectives Barton and Donnell flew to Copenhagen to interview Andreas. Incredibly, Andreas was pretty forthcoming and admitted to having the gun in Houston and visiting Curtis Hutton in Santa Barbara with his friend Edward. He said that he no longer had the gun because it broke down and he threw the pieces from a moving train in Austria.
Okay, they're never going to find those.
He also admitted to being in Los Angeles 2 days before the murders and for some import-export business. He said it was possible he was in Palm Springs on October 12th, 1978, and that he had gone there to see a young woman, the daughter of actor Robert Stack. Robert Stack and his daughter denied ever meeting or knowing Andreas Christensen. Like, if you're going to say that you were meeting somebody, don't use an actor that's famous.
You know who Robert Stack is, right?
Yes, but you still don't use the name of someone that's known.
I know, but I'm saying you know who he is to me.
Well, calm down.
I'm so excited.
Okay, well, that's the end of his part in this story. Anyway.
Well, dang it.
Then all of a sudden, cooperation stopped. The next time detectives tried to speak to Christensen, he refused. An independent investigation revealed horrifying details about Andreas. He had spent the last few years in Zimbabwe as a mercenary. Detective Barton flew back to the U.S., but Detective Donnell pressed on to South Africa. According to reports in the San Francisco Chronicle, a former girlfriend led the police officer to a cave that Christensen used. They found hand grenades, explosive mines, weapons, and most importantly, CCI Spear hollow point .45 caliber ammunition. The same ammunition that was used to kill the Friendlies and their maid. The ex-girlfriend remembered Christensen also writing letters to someone in Houston. She didn't remember the name, but she remembered it was demanding payment of $150,000. When detectives and prosecutors regrouped in Palm Springs, they decided to prosecute both Edward Hutton, who was remarried living in Texas, and Andreas Christensen. The Danish court went ahead and formally charged Christensen with the three murders in California. Christensen applied to become a Danish citizen again because the country would not allow the extradition of an accused person to a country that carried the death penalty. Now, you won't believe this, but in spite of nearly 3 years of work by detectives, as well as the help from the Danish, English, and Zimbabwean authorities, the prosecutor's office pulled the plug on the investigation. Palm Springs is wealthy, but the vast Riverside County is not, and they couldn't afford to keep going. Sources say that authorities feared that a multiple defendant first-degree murder trial involving extradition from a foreign country would bankrupt the county. For reference, the Manson family murder trial cost California nearly $1 million. The Friendly murder case had weaknesses. It had no witnesses, no weapon, no confession, and only circumstantial evidence. So they weren't going to put the investment into this trial.
Yeah, it doesn't sound like it would be a wise financial decision for them.
The Danish dropped their murder charges, and Andreas Christensen was prosecuted for only the bank robbery. Murders do not have a statute of limitations, and the case remains categorized as open. After serving several years, Christensen was released and lives in Denmark. Edward Hutton left the United States in the mid-1980s and took up residence in Brazil. If Palm Springs ever progressed to arrests, there would now need to be 2 extraditions from foreign countries. Edward Hutton is also estranged from his ex-wife and children. The Friendly murders were then assigned to veteran Riverside investigator Richard Twiss. Remarkably, Twiss was able to come up with a potential new source of evidence linking the murder to the 1978 crimes. Dr. John W. Bond, that's John Bond, a British chemistry professor, created a procedure for lifting prints off of metal objects. When someone loads a bullet into a gun, very often the sweat on the fingers is transferred onto the bullet, explains Dr. Bond. When the gun is fired, the heat from the explosion etches the print like a tattoo on a shell casing. Police sent the casings to Dr. Bond. I was able to lift a number of good prints, he confirms, but they are believed to primarily be the sides of someone's fingertips, an area not usually captured at that time. Police did have Andreas's prints, but they needed new ones that had the side-to-side inking to determine a match. Authorities had the information that Christensen lived outside of Copenhagen at the time, and he was living under a former alias. Informal efforts were made to try to acquire new prints, but no formal request was ever made by the Riverside County authorities to the Danish government. I don't understand why. I am beside myself on why they didn't just say, hey, go get the side to side if they know his name and they know where he lives.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, in 2010, they took Twiss off the case and it became stagnant again. The new DA's assistant spokesperson, John Hall, in the latest phone call said, "At this time, the case remains open. There's not enough evidence at this point to file any criminal charges. As with any open case, should further information or evidence develop, then we would review that evidence for possible criminal filings." Suzanne Friendly asks, where is the justice for her father's death? And probably the most poignant thing was a letter found written by Curtis Hutton, Edward Hutton's father, in December 1976 to Edward 2 years before the triple homicide in Palm Springs. And remember, he was the one that had that $1 million trust.
Mm-hmm.
It reads, "Dear Edward, this is probably one of the hardest letters I've ever had to write to you. You, as my son, I love very much, but as a man, I cannot say that you've amounted to much. Nearly 38 years old and with no steady job, with certainly no future to look forward to, take a look at your own life. What have you accomplished in these past years? You've squandered money trying to be and live like a big shot. You must change your ways and improve your standard of living if you expect any inheritance from me. You must demonstrate your ability to be a good father and one that can be relied upon to contribute to the financial welfare of your children. With love and good luck, my son." There isn't any information that Curtis ever received a reply. That is the story of the Friendly murders in Palm Springs. My sources were De Jour Magazine, Desert Sun News, USA Today, and the book Crime Buff's Guide to Outlaw Los Angeles by Ron Fransel.
It's totally him. He totally
I think that what happened
100% he orchestrated that.
I think he paid Andreas Christensen to kill his mother, Ed Friendly, and the maid just happened to be collateral damage.
100%.
Because remember, Andreas was a mercenary, which is someone who is like a paid for hire soldier. So and obviously he had that whole arsenal in that cave too, where they found the exact same bullets. It seems odd. And the throwing away of the gun, but he admitted to being there, having the gun, all of it. To me, if they just got those prints from Andreas Christensen, from the side to side prints, I think they would have a match.
I think so too. I just don't think that they're willing to spend all the money that would take to bring him to justice.
That's the problem, is like, so let's say they do have a match. Then they would have to pay to extradite him, and they would have to pay to extradite Edward as well, because he lives in Brazil.
I think at this point, they're just calling it. They know who did it. And at this point, they're not in the country anymore. And there's no threat to their citizens. So they're not going to persecute.
Yeah, which sucks because there is no justice for the rest of the family.
No.
Both sides of the families, and the family of that freaking poor maid that just got caught in the crosshairs.
Right. All she was doing was making a fish dinner.
I know. There were so many fish dinners in this story, which I thought was odd.
I know. The more times you kept saying fish dinner, I was like, this is really weird.
Also, fun fact, you're eating fish dinners in the middle of the desert, you guys.
Which,
just saying,
Hannah and I talked about that when I was in Arizona with her.
Yeah.
I was like, she goes, I don't eat fish here because where is it coming from?
I mean, you can get fresh frozen.
Right. But I mean, she's talking about like sushi, and I'm sorry. Yeah. I'm not going to eat fish that was once frozen and then thawed for sushi. I'm just not.
No, absolutely not for sushi.
No. I mean, like if you get like wild caught frozen salmon, I mean, that's a different situation, but like,
I mean, if they can get it shipped though, with it staying cold, potentially.
No, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing it. And I suggest you do not either. Just some friendly advice for you. Don't eat fresh fish that they call quote unquote fish in landlocked cities, peoples. Please.
I am just like beside myself though with this case. I thought it was such a roller coaster going through it all, and just seeing like, it's still not solved. It sounds like a professional hit, that they didn't find anything, that it was quiet, which makes me think that there was a silencer, or a suppressor used, Yeah. So it just, and the fact that Andreas did that type of work for years makes it feel very sketch. Also, I kind of think that David St. John was murdered. That's the head waiter, or the maitre d' from the restaurant, who was testifying that Edward and Andreas talked the other guy into getting the gun. I think
possibly.
Yeah. And that letter that for the $150,000 that the girlfriend saw Andreas writing, it all seems to add up. Also, I think Edward going to Brazil specifically to hide away seems also like that was like a plan.
He's a coward.
And he gets $96,000 a year from that trust every year, no matter what.
Yeah, I don't like that.
He's a coward, but he's also kind of a dickhead, because like his wife was talking about how he just walked away from his family and he has no contact with his children at all.
Of course not.
And they tried, but he has no contact with them.
Well, and it shouldn't be the children trying anyway.
No. But the wife tried to get him to have contact with the children. It's just crazy. I just thought the whole thing was crazy. And all of it comes down to like money, all this old money, people passing on money and the importance of money, all of that. Edward just loved living like the high life, and so did his mom, but they were still squandering their inheritances.
Well, and his mom didn't sound like a very good mother anyway.
No, and she also like took the house that was in their name, which is shitty. You know,
Yeah. It just the whole lot of them seems,
they seem
I mean,
like
I don't know much about the
assholes.
daughter, but like Jesus.
I know they seem like assholes. Anyway, that was my case from Palm Springs.
Good job, friend.
Nothing like a triple homicide,
There's nothing like a triple homicide.
right?
No.
No. Okay. Well, we're gonna take a quick break and then we will be right back after you hear a word from our sponsor, and we will hear Autumn's case from Arizona.
Welcome back. It's me, Autumn. Erin, I don't know why you do this to me.
I just think it's funny to see what you're gonna say.
She throws it in. She goes, "You're bringing us back," and I'm sitting here like, "Oh man."
Yeah, it's good for you though.
Okay.
Then you get used to it.
Yeah. No.
So we traveled to Palm Springs, but we are off to Arizona with Autumn now.
In the desert of Arizona.
Is that the name? Is that the name of your case?
No.
Okay.
No, it's not.
More ad libbing.
Yes, I'm getting really good at it.
Sure.
You notice how I didn't laugh. No, just kidding. Okay.
It was noted.
Bringing it in, bringing it back. Hannah actually suggested this case to me. She's seeing it all on the news over there and it's sad. So I would like to get more awareness out there for it as well.
Okay.
And this is the case of Daniel Robinson. On June 23rd, 2021, around 9 a.m., 24-year-old geologist Daniel Robinson was last seen leaving his job site in Buckeye, Arizona, near Sun Valley Parkway and Cactus Road, in his blue-gray 2017 Jeep Renegade, heading west towards the desert. Daniel was a South Carolina native who had moved to Phoenix, Arizona in 2019 after graduating as a field geologist from the College of Charleston in Charleston, South Carolina. He had joined a fraternity at the liberal arts school and had graduated with honors. Daniel was born without a forearm, but that never slowed him down. He shunned prosthetics and embraced his difference, refusing for his difference to be a handicap. He learned to play musical instruments, play football, and was into weightlifting. His family has described him as an intelligent scientist and a go-getter with dreams of becoming an entrepreneur with a love for traveling. The morning of June 23rd, Daniel arrived at his job site, where he worked as a geologist for Matrix New World Engineering. His coworker, Ken Elliott, stated he saw Daniel drive up in his Jeep that morning, and they talked for a bit together about very normal things, like work and the weather. This was the first time that Ken and Daniel had met, so they hadn't been talking about anything deep. But he stated that out of nowhere, Daniel's mood shifted, and he kept looking off into the distance at the desert, and he had this strange, distant look in his eyes. He had even thought Daniel might be on drugs or something. But when he looked into his eyes, his pupils were not dilated.
That's odd.
Like, so very, like if this person that just met him can tell there was a shift in the conversation.
Yeah.
And the way he was acting, like.
Weird that all of a sudden he just stared off into the desert.
Right. And
mid conversation when they were having a regular conversation.
Yeah, just like a normal conversation.
Yeah.
The conversation started to get strained with long periods of silence. And when Daniel would speak, he wasn't making any sense. Ken gave an example. Daniel had asked him if he wanted to go to Phoenix to rest. This made no sense to Ken as it was the beginning of the workday. About 15 minutes of this interaction continued before Daniel abruptly turned around and headed back towards his Jeep.
I mean, I can understand why he's like, maybe he was on drugs because that seems really odd.
Like super odd.
Yeah.
Kenneth said he thought Daniel had forgot something in his Jeep and was going to grab the item. However, Ken stated Daniel opened the door, got into his Jeep, sat down, put on his seatbelt, looked at Ken, waved at Ken, backed up, and drove away.
Okay.
Right? So Ken, this is all very strange to Ken, as you can imagine.
Like, is he going to Phoenix to rest?
Right. They were not finished working for the day. They still had stuff to do. And Ken called their boss and asked them if Daniel had called out sick. Had he gone back home? However, his boss said he hadn't heard from Daniel at all that day.
That's weird.
Mm-hmm. Ken couldn't stop thinking about Daniel and how he had acted that morning. He decided to do a little investigating and came across Daniel's Jeep tracks, heading off into the desert, not in the direction of Daniel's home.
I also kind of love that Kenneth is low-key detectiving.
Right, I do too. Which told Ken that he hadn't left the job site to go back home. Daniel's family was from South Carolina, but he did have a sister that lived in Phoenix, Arizona, and Ken arrived at her apartment asking if she had seen or heard from her brother that day. She quickly realized that something was not right after Ken let her know how he was acting earlier that morning and that he hadn't returned to work. His sister called their father, David Robinson, 1,800 miles away in South Carolina, and alerted him that she believed her brother was missing. Daniel stayed in regular contact with his family, and his father had not heard from him or been able to reach him that day. David wasted no time and asked his daughter to go to Daniel's apartment to check on him, and he tried calling Daniel's friends to see if anyone had seen or heard from him. When his sister let their dad know that he was not home, David realized that it had been 6 hours since he had last been seen, and he called the police in Arizona to report Daniel missing. However, the police told David that he needed to wait 72 hours before being able to report him missing.
But he was missing already.
I know. And the part that bothers me is that, yes, I understand that adults can go missing and they have the right to not be tracked down by parents and family.
Sure.
But clearly there was something off about him that day. And I feel like 72 hours, which is 3 days, is a little long to wait for somebody, especially in desert conditions. It's extremely hot. It can get up to 115, 120 degrees. And then it gets super cold at night.
Well, so and there was suspicious behavior.
Mm-hmm. So it's
strange behavior.
72 hours to me is too long.
It's too long. Too long for things to happen and also for evidence to get destroyed.
Agreed. This did not sit well with David. And so David told reporters, I grabbed anything that I could grab, got in my vehicle, and drove to Arizona. I would have done the same.
Yeah, totally.
Thinking back on some recent situations of Daniel's, it was even more concerning that he was now missing. Daniel had been working a side gig for Instacart, and he had delivered groceries to a woman named Caitlin, who had invited him in to come hang out with her because her and her friends had been drinking, and he seemed harmless because he was short and only had one arm, which to me, that's kind of crappy.
Oh, they thought he seemed harmless.
Yes, they thought he seemed harmless because he was short and only had one arm.
Well, so that's shitty of them.
I know. I feel like it was, my personal opinion is it feels like she was kind of drunk and was like, let's just mess with this kid.
Yeah, maybe. Or maybe just drunk and we're like, fuck it, let's hang out.
Maybe. But however,
I don't like it.
Me either. However, Caitlin said that Daniel became fixated on her, texting her constantly, and showed up to her home unannounced, even coming by when she was not home.
Well, I do not like that.
I don't like that either. Caitlin has said she did not reciprocate the feelings, and he was starting to freak her out, texting her that he was in love with her. She asked him to please stop texting her, and he sent her one last text the day before he went missing that read, "The world can get better, but I'll have to take all the time I can, or we can, whatever, to name it. I'll either see you again or never see you again." The whole text is bizarre to me. I don't even know what he means by whatever to name it. That doesn't even make sense.
Yeah,
it odd. Just seems so dramatic.
Really odd behavior for someone you just sort of met.
Mm-hmm. And that didn't reciprocate the feelings and told you to get lost, basically.
Yeah.
There was also an incident that Daniel left his door to his apartment wide open and disappeared for a good chunk of time before coming back into contact.
Yeah, that's odd too.
Mm-hmm. Also, Daniel's social media was also scrubbed of all posts prior to his disappearance. Super weird.
Yeah.
The next day, on June 24th, the police did a ground search of the area Daniel was last seen. So they did agree to look for him. His job site in Buckeye. At his job site in Buckeye, nothing of significance was discovered. They also tried accessing his vehicle's Uconnect system, and no GPS data was available. So they tried pinging his cell phone for a location, but that was unsuccessful.
Oh, darn it. I was hoping that would be the one.
Same. David, Daniel's father, was in Arizona organizing multiple searches and pleading with the public for answers, actively driving forward the search for his son. David has stated that he felt that he has done more than the police in the efforts to locate his son. He has referenced the Gabby Petito case, where the whole world was focused in on finding her, but his son was barely given even local coverage, which I can imagine is super frustrating for a family.
Makes sense.
On July 19th, in a ravine, less than 3 miles from the job site where Daniel was last seen, a rancher who owned the property discovered Daniel's Jeep rolled over on its side, with the airbags deployed and evidence in the car indicating that the driver was wearing a seatbelt at this time of the crash. Daniel was not in the vehicle. However, similar to the missing persons case we spoke about a few episodes back of Logan Schindelman, Daniel's personal items were found in the Jeep: his cell phone, wallet, and keys. And even stranger, the clothing he was seen wearing the day he went missing.
Yeah, that definitely sounds sketchy to me. It feels like, those are, A, you're going to be wearing clothes. B, you're also going to be taking those items with you. If you were just in a car accident, even if your phone was dead, you'd still take it with you.
100%. Tragically, a human skull was found near the crash site. While they were awaiting testing being done on the skull, Daniel's family hired an accident reconstructionist and a private investigator to dig into the discovery of the Jeep and what might have happened to Daniel. This is what they found. Daniel's Jeep Renegade was involved in a rollover crash. It was the only crash recorded on the vehicle's internal systems. Speed increased right before impact, which could indicate an attempt to drive up the other side of the ravine. More than 40 ignition cycles were recorded after the crash. This could be due to driver attempts to restart the vehicle or use the electrical systems. It is unclear how many cycles occurred during the tow recovery and when investigators downloaded the data. An 11-mile discrepancy between the crash data report and the displayed odometer reading is not considered unusual. Similar discrepancies have been noted by Jeep dealership service departments and another crash deconstructionist. However, the company that Daniel's family hired to look into the crash details has stated they believe that the accident scene was staged and that they staged that after the airbags deployed. The ignition was turned over 46 more times, and there was an additional 11 miles on the car that registered after the car crashed. So they're saying that it was driven there and it had to be started 46 more times.
Yeah. And purposely
done.
Mm-hmm.
But there's also evidence saying that by Jeep dealership services that's not that unusual to see a discrepancy in the mileage.
I mean, I also think like after a crash, what if their foot was still on the gas? It would turn all the wheels, which would make it feel like they had gone further. I don't know.
That could totally be it as well.
You know, I mean, it seems odd. 11 miles seems like a lot to me.
I know, me too. But it's at the same time, it's like you just never know.
But I'm also not a car expert, so
me either. Same. The results from the human skull recovered came back as not Daniel's.
So just a skull in the desert, y'all.
Right. Just a skull in the desert. That's correct. Since he has been reported missing, there have been over 18 major searches, and they have covered over 70 square miles by land and air. Daniel has not been recovered, and they have no answers as to where he might be. Daniel's father, David, has moved to Arizona to continue the efforts of locating his son.
Oh, wow.
And does not plan on leaving until they find out what has happened to Daniel.
It makes sense. I'd be the same.
Daniel is a 25-year-old African-American male. He is 5'8", and at the time of his disappearance, weighed 165 pounds. He has black hair and brown eyes and is missing his right forearm, including his hand. He has been missing for 11 months. Please visit the website his family has set up for him at pleasehelpfinddaniel.com. If you have any information regarding the disappearance of Daniel Robinson, please call David Robinson II at 803-200-7994 or anonymously call or text 844-602-0660. My sources were Wikipedia, pleasehelpfinddaniel.com, 12news.com, BuckeyeArizona.gov, The Independent, Rolling Stone, and the Crime Junkie podcast.
Wow, that is so sad.
It is so sad. And it's so short because there's not much information available at all. And I don't know, like I've been thinking about it, and this is just my theory. Obviously, I'm not an expert of any sort, but I have a feeling, like I just have this theory that Daniel was having an off day, something was going on mentally with him, and he did drive off into the desert because Ken saw his tracks leading into the desert, and his Jeep was found 3 miles away from that job site. I feel like he did get into a crash because I will post the pictures on Instagram, and it was a rollover crash. So, I mean, it wasn't like a small,
but he could have been disoriented.
Right. And there was no blood. I should also say there was no blood found in his vehicle, but that doesn't mean he wasn't injured.
Sure.
And I feel like the clothes being off of him, like is kind of a, when you have hypothermia, like you start like undressing, and in the desert, it gets very cold at night.
It does.
So you just don't know what's going on.
I don't know. It's still very odd. I think the fact that he was jumbling words makes me feel like, I don't know. I mean, that happens with strokes. That happens with, things that, I don't know, like something may have happened like medically, perhaps.
I just don't think that it was foul play. I just don't
unless he was supposed to meet someone in the desert and was just super distracted by that. And then they killed him. But yeah, it does sound like something happened. It's really shitty that he hasn't gotten enough press coverage, because you wonder if, like, you never know who you're going to reach that'll be like, oh, I remember I saw that car, or I remember I saw that guy walking by, or something like that. It doesn't seem like him that he would just cut off all communication from his family and friends and just be gone.
I agree.
I don't know.
I hope this reaches the right person or they find him, because his dad is running out of funding to do all these searches. There's a GoFundMe page for them, but I'd rather you go to his website and see what you can do. And then if you want to donate. But it's just heartbreaking to not know where your child is.
Oh yeah. And this has only been 11 months. So hopefully they will get some more traction, and maybe they'll, like I said, who knows who they could, can hear this podcast or Crime Junkie or any of the other news sources and might know something.
100%.
Hopefully he's found alive.
I hope so. That would be the best case scenario.
And if we do find out more information about this, or something else happens, we'll give an update.
Oh, for sure. Definitely. I hope there's a conclusion. I really do.
Yeah. Weird that both of us had neither of our cases are solved.
I didn't even think about that until you just said it. That's so true.
Yeah. Okay. Well, we will be back next week with some more cases, and talk about more murders and all that.
I'm gonna try to look for a non-missing person one. I've done a lot of those lately, and not that I don't think that they're important. I just love to be able to give some answers.
Yeah.
We'll switch it up a little bit.
Yeah. Both of us will have solved cases. How about that?
Yes. Next week will be solved cases.
We promise. So we'll be back next week with another new episode. Thank you so much for listening to us. Please follow up on our Instagram to see photos and more information on both of our cases, including the information again for Autumn's case. Yes. That way, if you do have information, you can report that. Outside of that, that is the end of our show, and we will see you next week. Bye.
Bye.